All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I've received many messages and requests asking me to provide my perspective or my analysis of the storyline that is currently emanating from Washington, D.C., pertaining to Mr. Donald Trump, the embattled and beleaguered President of the United States of America, and this notion that he is currently being impeached or that there is an impeachment inquiry. There's really not any form of impeachment or impeachment inquiry as much as what's being played out, which is their attempt to quote-unquote ritually sacrifice Donald Trump over the mass airwaves as a personification of the quote-unquote masculine principle or the divine masculine. That is what Donald Trump represents, believe it or not, because he is unabashed and he's unapologetic in many of his viewpoints and the ideologies that he espouses on a daily basis. He's unrepentant, and they do not like that because as of right now, really as of the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a concerted attempt by the far leftists, or as they call themselves, the Democrats, because the Democratic Party has pretty much been taken over by the Marxist/socialist aspect of that quote-unquote political party. There's been a concerted attempt by them to emasculate men, to demean men in any way, shape, and form, to tear down what they call the quote-unquote patriarchy. I'm sure that many of you brothers have heard this statement before, or that concept before, of what they call the quote-unquote patriarchy. That's why I always state that the liberal black woman is not with you. She's a pawn of the far left. She's a pawn of those who believe that men should not be in power in any way, shape, or form, and that adequate rulership can only come through someone who exudes the energy of the quote-unquote divine feminine. Either that's a woman, a homosexual, or a transgender. Someone who, at least in part, exudes the energy of the divine feminine. So that is why they're trying to tear down Donald Trump. And that is what this impeachment inquiry is all about. If you pay very close attention, the most ardent and visible detractors of Donald Trump are who? Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, as well as the clique known as the quote-unquote squad. And I'm going to be doing a video about them very soon. They're all socialists/Marxists. All of those females in the squad are socialists/Marxists. And most of the members, the more moderate members of the Democratic Party, know this already. They know that their party has been hijacked by socialists/Marxists, and there's not much that they can do about it because so much of what we call political correctness is tied in to the notions and the sentiments that are embodied and propagated by the socialist or Marxist aspect of the Democratic Party. They're the entity that is establishing to people today in pop culture what the correct mode of thought is, what we call wokeness. The woke movement is basically an offshoot of Marxism. That being that everybody's equal, that workers should be equal to the owners of businesses, things like that. That comes from Marxism. So this is a very intricate issue that is transpiring right now that's being played out in the form of Donald Trump against the mainstream media and Donald Trump against the House of Representatives and the Senate, what they call Congress. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Down in Washington.
It's very sad what the Democrats are doing to this country. They're dividing.
I found the allegations deeply disturbing.
And you know, the strangest thing about this entire storyline is that they're making Donald Trump a sympathetic figure to those of us who think rationally. And when we understand Donald Trump and his history, he's not someone to sympathize with or to show pity to. But the far leftists, who we call super liberals, but who are really just socialists, are so ridiculous and extreme in many of their assertions that anyone who's even moderately moderate would have to side with someone more like a Donald Trump than people like the squad who have no real plan and who actually are just trying to promote the divine feminine. Once again, when I do my video on the squad, I'm going to show you that. That is all they're concerned about. And as usual, they're trying to rein in the so-called black man because they view you as a pet dog. That's how the so-called liberals view the so-called black man. And once again, am I quote-unquote on the side of the quote-unquote conservative aspect of the Republican Party? No, I am not. I do not adhere to that paradigm whatsoever. But for the most part, so-called black people are constantly being sucked down that super liberal rabbit hole called wokeism. And I have to try to bring the so-called black man out of it because the so-called black woman's not going to make it, man. And brothers have to get that through their head. Stop worrying about the sisters. They're not going to make it for the most part. There's going to be a very small remnant of them that are going to be able to see through the bullshit. And for the most part, they're not going to be raised up until the very end because the woman is a two-dimensional thinker. At least the vast majority of them are. Are there exceptions to that rule? Yes. But for the most part, they're two-dimensional thinkers who go according to their emotions. So the so-called black man is going to have to wake up and not allow himself to be caught up in this back and forth between quote unquote Democrats and so-called Republicans. You'll notice that the far leftists are constantly trying to shame the so-called black men into siding with them, claiming that you're a coon or you're not really black if you don't side with them, or if you are just waiting to see who makes more sense. They don't want you to use your rational mind. They want you to be emotional like the mother that raised you. Once again, they want you to hearken to the divine feminine.
Good evening. I'm Christine Johnson.
I'm Maurice Dubois, now on CBS 2 and streaming on CBSN. New York, President Trump on the defensive today, making several appearances and statements about the impeachment inquiry.
Including one with the man at the center of this controversial phone call that started the whole thing. CBS 2's Jessica Layton here now with the details. Jessica? Well, Chris.
And brothers, before they speak, I just want to say this. If you pay very close attention to this entire storyline, the so-called whistleblower has not been revealed. The Democratic Party is not really allowing any aspects or components of the Republican Party to gain access to the whistleblower to ask him questions or cross-examine him. Why is that? Because they're just trying to demonize Donald Trump enough prior to the 2020 election/selection to cast doubts in the minds of people who are undecided right now. Because they understand that their crew of so-called Democratic nominees is FUBAR, is fucked up beyond all recognition. There's no candidate that they have on the Democratic side that will be able to defeat Trump. They know that already.
Maurice, as we sort of expected here, the notes on the call are open to interpretation, and whether an impeachment inquiry is even warranted, well, that depends on who you ask. Republicans say this is ridiculous, but House Democrats are moving forward with that plan for impeachment.
He said no pressure, no nothing. It's all a hoax. I call it the hoax.
I agree with this dude. It is a hoax. And hopefully many brothers do not fall for it. The job of the so-called black man is to train himself to use his logical and rational mind to be able to evaluate situations. That's our job, not to follow behind the so-called black woman who's become accustomed to acting as a proxy ruler over the so-called black community. And all they are, no disrespect to them, all they are the proverbial housemaids of the liberal party. That's all they've ever been. That's all they're going to continue to be. House representatives like Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar, they're allowed to get behind a microphone and talk a lot of hot shit. They're most likely not even going to be allowed to represent their district after their terms are over.
Day of the UN General Assembly in New York, the president remained focused on defending himself and his July phone call with the president of Ukraine, saying the conversation was totally above board.
This is just a continuation of the witch hunt, and that's all faded.
Volodymyr Zelensky backed.
Now, I'm not quite sure if you brothers can see it, but the hand pose, the hand gesture that Donald Trump is doing on the right-hand side is known as the Spear of Longinus. It's what's known as a chthonic pose. He's trying to conjure or summon the energies from the infernal regions, per se, quote unquote, or the hellish regions. So behind the scenes, Donald Trump is a Luciferian like them all, but he has a role to play, and they are not all in lockstep. They are not all in agreement. That's why the scriptures tell us that if Satan is divided against Satan, his house cannot stand.
Up as the two leaders met face to face.
Nobody pushed me.
The meeting came as the White House released a summary of the call. It showed no quid pro quo over military aid to Ukraine directly relating to a probe of the Bidens.
Brothers, once again, as they just acknowledged, the telephone transcript did not show any form of quid pro quo. But just from a ruling class mentality, whenever you engage with someone, especially if you have a business mind, there is going to be some form of quid pro quo, meaning this for that. I'm going to help you out, and this is how you help me out. Every president, every ruler, every leader has done that. The real issue is that Donald Trump, once again, represents an unrepentant manifestation of the masculine principle. He's not going to kowtow to women, homosexuals, or transgenders, and that makes them extremely upset. I mentioned this in another video. After Barack Obama was elected/selected, the super liberals thought that the next president was going to be a woman or an out-of-the-closet homosexual. If you're paying attention, one of the foremost Democratic nominees that they were trying to promote for this voting cycle was someone by the name of Pete Buttigieg, or as I call him, Pete Booty Gay. A dude who's a Jesuit and a Rhodes Scholar, meaning he's pure globalist and he's a pawn of the elite. That's what's going on that side of the table. Of course, on both branches, they have to conform to many of the sentiments of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, etc. But we have to understand the rules of the game and what's transpiring right here. All this is about is them trying to tear down Trump because of the energies that he is representing or that he's being told to represent. When I see Pelosi going back and forth with Trump, it looks like a baby daddy and a baby mama in divorce court, haggling over who's going to pay how much money to who's going to get to see the kids when. And when Trump decided that he was going to give all of the attention to the quote-unquote squad that he did, he knew what he was doing, because it was going to shine a light on the utilization of these females who really don't know what the hell they're doing and who are in an environment that is much bigger than them. They don't really comprehend what's going on. They think that they're just going to go back and forth with some white man and try to push their wokeism. And it's much bigger than that.
Show the president suggested the Bidens be investigated. He told Zelensky the other thing. There's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Hunter Biden was on the board of a Ukrainian oil company. President Trump also said the attorney general and his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, would...
He's probably a bit more than just a personal lawyer. Once again, behind the curtain, behind the scenes, there's a lot of debauchery that goes on with these figures that we see on television. Everyone knows that Rudy Giuliani loves to dress up in drag. He has an alter ego of his where basically he's some type of madam or female prostitute. I'm sure that most of you have seen the video of him and Trump flirting with each other with Rudy Giuliani dressed in drag. So all these people are just playing a role. Everyone in the entertainment sphere is not just an overt actor. Politicians, athletes, singers, they're all actors.
Follow up.
Your thoughts on the transcript?
Leaving a fundraiser in California Wednesday, Biden, now running for president, had only this to say.
Transcripts are very revealing.
House Democrats maintain it is grounds for impeachment.
The notes of the call reflect a conversation far more damning than I or many others had imagined.
Has asked a foreign government to help him in his political campaign.
Now, brothers, this person, Nancy Pelosi, is a very interesting figure. She has photographs dating all the way back to the John F. Kennedy administration, with her, of course, standing adjacent to John F. Kennedy. Her father, Thomas D'Alessandro, worked alongside of John F. Kennedy, and there are reports that Kennedy feared that D'Alessandro had mob ties. Now, of course, we know Mrs. Nancy Pelosi today as Donald Trump's most visible adversary. As I've already stated, she's playing the proverbial baby mama to Donald Trump, baby daddy. But there's a lot going on with her, as I've already stated. There are some allegations that she is the behind the curtains owner of a pizza restaurant in the Bay Area known as Goat Hill Pizza that may be a front for funneling certain monies to the Democratic Party, and also possibly involved in child sex trafficking, allegedly, much like the pizzeria in Washington, D.C. Who knows? I wouldn't put it past her or anyone else who's involved in the upper layers of government anywhere across the country. But once again, that is her role, and that's all this is really about. This is more of the divine feminine versus the divine masculine playing out in public. And they need Donald Trump to fall so that women once again can be reinvigorated to continue their efforts to take down the quote-unquote patriarchy.
At the expense of our national security, as well as undermining the integrity of our elections.
Brother, Nancy Pelosi knows in her own heart that she couldn't lead the country if she wanted to. It's so hilarious to me to see the Democrats, a party that for the last 30 years or so has tried to act as if they are so against war, now suddenly talking about national security and things of that nature. It's just anything to run contrary to the energy that's being emanated by Trump. Whatever he's doing right now, they're coming against him, and it's not because they necessarily disagree with his politics. It's because of the presentation. They prefer you to be a better actor. They like Barack Obama, someone who can get behind the podium and appear to be studious and well put together mentally, but behind the scenes was doing just as much wickedness as Donald Trump is alleged to be doing.
Republicans fired back, blasting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
What Speaker Pelosi did yesterday really was the worst we've seen yet, where she announced an impeachment inquiry without any evidence.
He did.
You don't need evidence in today's media. You don't need evidence in today's society. It's all about optics and attention. That's it.
Wrong under the law or otherwise.
Well, tonight, members of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees continue to review that full complaint by the person who initially blew the whistle on that call.
Whoever that person is.
Acting Director of National Intelligence will testify about the complaint tomorrow morning on Capitol Hill. Maurice.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers, for now. We'll see how things go. But they are trying to throw as much dirt on Donald Trump as they can, because they know if they were just to evaluate what his presidency has been, according to actual measurables, things that can be quantifiable, like the economy, etc., they know that they're going to lose that battle and that debate. So they have to try to attribute some type of criminality to his tenure in the White House, when all these people are criminals. Every high-level politician is a criminal. They cannot get to that level unless they have something seedy going on behind the scenes. I don't care who they are. But anyway, peace.